One of the scariest parts of buying a home is the home inspection itself. What's going to be uncovered? How do I know what's important and what's not? What should I expect? How do I make sure I have a good home inspector? There are so many factors that go into this that can be overwhelming, especially when you think of all the other things you need to be checking during the inspection period as well. That's why in today's video, I'm going to cover my top 13 home inspection tips for buyers to make sure that your home inspection goes smoothly. Hi, I'm Allesen Cann. I'm a realtor here in beautiful San Diego, California. My passion is helping first-time home buyers navigate the home buying process because I remember when I was a first-time home buyer and I was lost. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't really feel like I understood the process. And I always want home buyers to really understand what's happening every step of the process so they can be making super informed decisions the entire process. If you find this information helpful and you just want to learn more about San Diego in general, hit the subscribe button. I'd super appreciate it. It helps me know if people are actually watching and really want to see more of this information. Otherwise, it's kind of hard to tell, you know? Okay, let's get started with tip number 1. First tip's really simple. Get a home inspection. This is a non-negotiable. You have to get a home inspection. I don't care if you're buying the home from your grandma. I don't care pretty much anything. I've had one buyer once that I let not get a home inspection. And that was just because it had already been inspected. We had the inspection report and it was a good report. You can definitely tell the difference between a good report and a bad report. That is the only time I've ever let a buyer get away with that. Otherwise, you have to get it inspected. This is not negotiable. Even in a hot buyer or seller, even in a hot seller's market where people are waiving contingencies left and right, you do not waive the inspection contingency, okay? Even if you only have like 3 days to get it done, get it done. You need to know what's hiding there. What don't you know that the inspector's gonna find? It's way too important. Do not miss it. Tip number 2, get it done early in the inspection period. Here in San Diego, right now, we're having about 10-day inspection periods. They usually kind of range from like 7 to 14 days. I guess technically in California, you can go up to 17 days is what's in the contract, or I mean, you could negotiate more if the seller's willing to, but right now we're looking at about 10 days. You want to get that inspection done as early on in that process as possible, because if anything comes up in that inspection, something big and scary, the roof has an issue, or the HVAC's not working properly, or whatever, and you want to get a secondary inspection to check the roof, to check the HVAC, you need that time. And if you want to get quotes for any repairs that come up, even if you're not going to ask the seller for them, but you're like, I know I'm going to have to replace all of the floors and I want to know how much that's going to be. You want to do all of that in the inspection period if you can. That way, if something super big and scary comes up and you cannot reach an agreement with the seller, you can back out. But you need to make sure you have enough time to get it all done. So get that inspection done as soon as possible. Tip number 3 is to get recommendations for the inspector from your real estate agent. If they're good, if they've been in the business for a little while, they're going to have their favorite inspectors who they know are good, who they trust, and who they know are going to give you a good, solid report, and they're going to actually catch everything. The inspector's job is to find as much wrong with the house as possible. That's literally their job. They are looking for what's wrong. They want to tell you every little tiny thing that's wrong. So expect a big report. You want a big report because that means they're even pointing out the stupid little things like the hole in the screens, or I don't know, the plug is upside down, or just silly things that like are easily fixed or may never be fixed, but they were pointing them out. You want that. So get a list from your real estate agent, go and look at them online. Different home inspectors offer different things. Some offer warranties for things. I've seen home inspectors who offer warranties on the appliances, and they basically say, hey, we checked it. We said it was working. If in the next year something goes wrong, we're going to cover it. I've seen the same thing with roof leaks. They have all kinds of different things. They also offer different things. So for example, if you are buying a home with a pool, you probably want a home inspector who also knows pools so that you don't have to get two different people unless you want to do that. Not all home inspectors are going to do pools, so you may have to look around for one that does both. You might want to make sure that your home inspector works weekends. They don't all work weekends. So there's different things to look at, and you can look at all of that online. If you really trust your real estate agent, you can just have them pick their favorite, which is what a lot of people do. But I would recommend checking them out no matter what, because you just don't know. And it's as much on you to make sure that this person is good as it is on your real estate agent. Tip number 4, make sure you attend at least the end of the inspection, like the last 30 minutes when the inspector will actually walk you through all of his findings and explain what's wrong, what's important to really think about, maybe what's not so important to think about, and can also show you things like where the shutoff valves are, where is the electrical panel, all of those things. So you really know like how to use your house, not just here's your house. Inspections usually take around 2 to 4 hours. I was recently told by an inspector that it's 1 hour per 1,500 square feet. But I think, the minimum you're gonna see is like maybe an hour for like a small condo that's like fairly new and nothing's wrong. Usually it's gonna be at least 2 hours. So expect that. And then if you've got some big ginormous house, it can be all day. So plan for that. You can be there for the entire thing if you would like. You are welcome to follow the inspector around. I don't think they all love it, but I've done it. I learn a lot from being at them. But just know it can be really boring. I mean, they're going to be checking every single outlet and everything, and it can be really, really boring. So that's why a lot of people just go at the end. Tip number 5 is that the inspection can also be a really great time to take measurements, to spend time in the house, to plan paint colors, to do basically, more just checking out of the house to make sure that you actually want to buy this house. Sometimes being there for a good long period of time is actually good if it's a downstairs condo, because then you might get to hear more of like what the sounds are like upstairs or what the sounds are like in the complex. So yeah, definitely a great time to just spend more time in the new house. Tip number 6, the inspector is not normally going to be noting cosmetic issues. So look around yourself for those things. If it's something like a hole in a door, they're probably going to note that. But like if it's scratches on the wood floor, they're not going to note that. Usually they're looking at things that are more of a functional issue than cosmetic. Just note that they're not covering like everything. But they will be covering, the more important stuff about like how the house actually functions. Tip number 7. This one might be a little controversial. I'm going to recommend that you leave dad at home. I know. Many people want to have their dad there or have somebody there to help them, like make sure that the house is good. Let the inspector do his job. Feel free, bring dad another time, let him see the house. But we often find dads questioning inspectors and taking extra time and causing friction. And it just doesn't really work as well. So, I mean, if you have to, then do it. But my recommendation is to leave dad at home. Tip number 8, if something scary comes up or something questionable comes up, get another inspection. So this is especially important if there's something wrong with the roof, if there are shingles that are moved out of place, or there's flashing missing, or they say that the roof looks like it's nearing end of life. Get a roofer out there, have them inspect the roof. It may cost you a couple $100s, but it could save you thousands down the line. Make sure you know what you're in for, because now that roofer can tell you, oh, we can, repair this stuff for $500, not a big deal. You can ask the seller to do that. Or you know that like, they're like, you need to replace this within the next year and it's going to be 20 grand. You definitely want to get some money from the seller for that. Okay. So that's why we do that. HVAC systems. Oftentimes it's a good idea to get those checked beforehand. I had one buyer who there was really nothing wrong with the HVAC that the inspector pointed out, but she had it inspected anyway. And unfortunately, the inspector actually did not catch what was wrong. Their inspector did not catch what was actually wrong with it. And the little hose that it like drains out of got clogged and it flooded the attic and then the roof fell down. Had she not gotten an inspection on the HVAC, she would have ended up having to pay for all of that damage herself. But because the HVAC company had checked it, they actually ended up covering that entire cost. Tip number 9, one secondary inspection that I do recommend getting done, and some inspectors actually have people on their team who can come out at the same time as the inspection and do this, but sometimes you just need to get a whole separate human or company rather, is getting, if you're buying a single family home, get the plumbing line from the house to the street inspected. Those last a really, really, really long time, but because a lot of our housing stock has gotten so old, they're good to check because it's not cheap to get them replaced. You have to actually dig from the house all the way out to the street. And if there's concrete involved, they have to jackhammer that up. If it's a long way, it gets more and more expensive. So it's good to have that inspected ahead of time to know if you're going to have any problems down the road. Tip 10. If you are buying a condo, know that the inspector probably isn't going to be checking the outside of the building. Now, I have had inspectors who do, just kind of as an informational thing, but the reality is that if it's a true condo where you only own inside the 4 walls, the HOA is responsible for everything outside. So the inspector might point out things so that you know that you're going to need to ask the HOA about them later, or it could be like good to know, hey, maybe the HOA is not maintaining this place very well. But for the most part, they're really just going to focus inside the 4 walls. Unless it's a townhouse where you do own the exterior as well, they will definitely check everything on the exterior for you in that case. Tip number 11. The inspector is not going to check the washer and dryer. I don't know. I'm not really sure why this is. They check the dishwasher, they check the stove, they check the refrigerator, they check the oven, but washers and dryers are usually out of their purview. If it's going to stay with the house, you could probably ask them to, but just know it's not what they're planning on. It's not in the plan. They're not going to be doing it just out of, like their normal process. Tip number 12. What do we ask for when we ask for repairs? In general, we don't ask for kind of the little things. We only ask for the big things that are like health and safety related. Now, that being said, if it's like a insanely strong buyer's market where buyers really get whatever they want, maybe you can ask for everything. But the reality is that every inspection report is going to have some things that need to be addressed ASAP. Other things that are like you're going to need to deal with these at some point soon. And then there's going to be other things that you're probably just never, ever going to address. They will just always be there. So usually what we do is we only ask for things in that top category if they are health or safety related. If the roof's leaking, we ask for that type of thing. If there's a leak in the bathroom or in the sink or something like that, we ask for that type of thing. If there's a fire hazard or the foundation's about to fall apart, we ask for like those types of things. But if it's that the screen has a hole in it, we don't ask for the screens to be repaired. Little things like that. The door doesn't close properly. We don't ask for that. It's the big scary things that we ask for the seller to address either by fixing them or giving us money. Which leads us to tip 13. Final tip. We usually ask for money rather than the seller to fix things. Now, this depends on the given situation. It depends on the buyer and how comfortable they are getting repairs done or how much they are willing to deal with it. But the reason for this is if you ask the seller to fix something, most things, big things, can be fixed multiple ways. They can be fixed the cheap way, or they can be fixed the super expensive, like amazing way. The seller is incentivized to pick the cheapest way. And that might fix it for now, but it may not fix it for later. Or it may fix the direct issue, but it's not fixing the potential other issues that happened or could happen because that issue existed in the first place. So the reason we ask for money is that you, as the buyer, get a quote on that repair. You understand how you want it repaired, and then you ask for the money to get that done. When the seller gives you money to get that done, they're basically paying for some of your closing costs. That way you keep your closing costs in your pocket so that you have the money to get that repair done later the way you want it and by who you want it done. The risk you're taking is if there is something bigger that gets uncovered when the repair is done that was not known about. Now you're on the hook for all of that. Having the seller do it, if something big and scary came up, like as they were doing the repair, they would have to deal with that. So there's the give and take, but usually it's safer to get the money and take care of the repair yourself so that you have control over how it's done. Okay, as promised, I also have 10 other tips for you of things to do during your inspection period. So the first one, go to the house at different times of the day and night. That way you're gonna see who is in the neighborhood. Do people hang out outside all the time at night? Is it noisy? Is there a lot of traffic at certain times of the day and night? If there's a school nearby and you're gonna be coming through at 3 o'clock every day, then probably wanna know what that traffic's like. Check your commute. A lot of people don't have commutes anymore. But if you're gonna have a commute at all, check it. Drive it as if you were actually commuting. So that means you have to go to the house really, really early in the morning and then drive your commute. Do that. Drive it home. Do that. Check it. Make sure you're okay with it. Third one is go to the grocery store. This might sound silly, but depending on where you live, it can be really important. When I lived in Atlanta, I bought a house that I like to say was ghetto adjacent. The closest grocery store to me, I just wasn't super comfortable in. It just, I don't know, it didn't feel like a place I really wanted to spend a lot of time. So I always ended up having to go a little bit further to a different store where I felt more comfortable. And quite honestly, I didn't even love that store because it was tiny. So then I would end up like driving far to other places. I mean, was I not going to buy the house because of that? Probably not, but it would have been a nice thing to have checked, so it wasn't a surprise. My fourth tip is one that nobody does. I'm going to be so impressed if you do it, but nobody does it. Let me know, comment below if you've ever done this or if you're planning to do it, but nobody ever does this. Knock on your neighbor's doors. You have no idea what these people are like unless you talk to them. So you have every right to go knock on their doors, next door, across the street, a couple of those. See what they're like. Are they crazy? It's good to know if they're crazy. You can't, control them. So you may buy it anyway, but you also might be more prepared for kind of what's going to happen down the line if you already understand a little about their personality. Fifth tip is to Google the house and the street and the neighborhood. Basically Google everything. So I would start with the exact address, then I would just Google the street, and then I would Google the neighborhood, like Google a bunch of stuff. The reason for this is that you can find out if anything newsworthy has happened in your neighborhood. For example, I sold a house where there was a crazy person who lived across the street, a racist crazy person living across the street. He used to hang sock monkeys in his front yard with signs that said crazy nonsense. He was in jail when we sold the house, so he wasn't there to show off his crazy. But if you Googled the street, it popped up right away. And sure enough, the first offer that we accepted, they Googled the street, they found out about him, they backed out of the contract. The next people did not. I don't know if they knew about him. Sellers are not required to disclose that. So Google the street. 6th extra bonus tip, check the crime statistics. So you can go on most county websites are gonna have this, but also home search sites. I think Trulia used to have a really good one where they actually compiled a few different ones into one chart, because you usually need to check both city and county to get a full picture. So make sure you do that, because you wanna know kind of what's going on in the neighborhood. People are always like, oh, is this a safe neighborhood? I can't tell you that. For one, it's steering, but also what I think is safe, you might not think is safe. So make sure you check those crime statistics, see if you're good with what's going on. Number 7, check the sex offender registry. This is actually in the contract that you sign. It says you should do this, but make sure you do. Go see if make sure there's no sex offender right next to you, because that's not something you want to deal with. Or if you have kids and they're a block away, and you want your kids to be able to walk around the neighborhood safely, it's a good thing to check. Number 8 is to actually go to the county and pull any permits on the house, especially if you can absolutely tell that work has been done on the home. Don't expect your real estate agent to do this. This is actually not something we do. It's not something we're required to do, because if we do it wrong or miss something, then we're liable. So you need to go do that. Just go talk to the county. You can give them a call. They're usually super helpful and they can help pull those permits for you so you can see what's permitted and what's not. Number 9 is to check the zoning. This is important if you want to do anything interesting with that house. So say you want to put an ADU in the backyard, just make sure that you can ahead of time. If you want to tear down a house and build 2 houses on the property or build a duplex or something like that, make sure you're allowed to. Just check all the zoning and make sure that that's all good. Number 10 is something that nobody does in California either. I highly recommend it, but it's not cheap, is to get a survey. This is super important if you want to do something like get a pool installed, because you want to know if there's any pipes or anything running underneath your backyard. It's also helpful to just double check your lot lines. I know, my neighborhood's fairly new, it's a subdivision, it shouldn't be a problem. I've actually heard of subdivisions where they actually put the wrong house in the wrong spot over property lines, and when the plot map was filed with the county, the house was in the wrong spot. So it's a good thing to do just to double check. Chances are it comes back, there's nothing to worry about, and that's awesome, but it's a good idea. And then, technically number 11 is just do anything else you need to do to make sure this is the house you want to get. Anything. Can't even think of any other things, but whatever it could possibly be, do that. Make sure it's the house you actually want. Thanks so much for watching this. If this was at all helpful, I would love a like, and definitely please subscribe. Check out my next video, and I hope you have a good one.